All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. We are now in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. In today's video, I'm going to be diving into the Chiefs and Texans game. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about the other plays like player props. I think I have 4 player props. Yeah, 4 player props as of right now to dive into as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to my final play, so what I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, all free down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3 for more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. All right, before we do get into this one, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Appreciate the heck out of you guys. And if you have some great plays that you think are great, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. There's so many plays down there on a week-to-week basis in the NFL that I wouldn't think to uncover or wouldn't think of even knowing how to find, and they're absolute bangers. So go ahead and drop your plays down in the comments. And if you're watching this, scroll down. See some comments. There's some absolute winners in there and some gems. So go ahead and check out the comment section. But let's dive into this one. We have the #1 seeded Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Texans here. They're 8.5-point favorites. This is the Texans team that, yes, they were the lower seed. They were the 4 seed against the Chargers last week. They were at home. But they were still the underdog, all things considered, right? I feel like everyone's grandmothers, ex-husbands, sisters, boyfriends were on the Chargers, and the Texans pulled it out. So if you were on the Texans last week, credit to you, kudos to you. This seems like it could be a little bit different, right? They're not at home. I would say this ain't Kansas anymore, like some Wizard of Oz stuff, but in fact, it is Kansas City, which, fun fact, not Kansas. But, you know, it's not exactly the exact matchup that we saw last week, right? We saw that Chargers team kind of implode. I don't know if the Chiefs necessarily do that this week, so let's go ahead and get started here. We can talk about the quarterbacks versus the defenses that we should expect to see here, and we'll take it from there. Then we'll get into our spread, our total, and then some player props. I also have a team total pick that I really like in this one as well. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So let's start off with, I guess, how Patrick Mahomes will fare against this Houston defense. So Patrick Mahomes versus the Houston defense, which is a very good defense. This team finished the season as the #3 defensive DVOA team on the year, #3 against the pass, #3 against the run. We saw 4 picks from Justin Herbert last week, right? So obviously this defense is pretty damn good, especially against the quarterback position. They allowed the 6th fewest yards per game to quarterbacks on the year. But a few things to note here is that at least since week 12, so these are all week 12 and beyond numbers, Houston 15th in pressure rate, 22nd in blitz rate. They have some decent sack numbers, but in terms of pressure and blitz, we shouldn't see too much of it. And Patrick Mahomes with a clean pocket in the last, what is that, since week 12, right? 12, 11, I'm going the wrong way, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, last 6 or so weeks, 73% completion percentage, yards per attempt at 7.5, success rate over 55, accuracy nearly 82%, EPA nearly 35, DVOA nearly 30%, and 0 turnover-worthy throw percentage. So Patrick Mahomes with a clean pocket should do some damage here. Now, we did just see this matchup on, what was it, New Year's Eve? Or no, it was the Saturday before Christmas. So, what was that, the 21st, 22nd? Whatever it is, right? Chiefs won 27-19. Did Patrick Mahomes have like an electric game? Not necessarily. I mean, he played well, 28 of 41 for 260 and a tutty, right? So he did have a good game. I don't expect any difference here. Patrick Mahomes should be able to kind of do what he needs to do and do what he wants in a clean pocket. And let's not forget, this is playoff Patrick Mahomes, right? As a Patriots fan, we lived through the unlocking another tier of excellence when you get to the playoffs watching Tom Brady growing up, right? So Patrick Mahomes in that same boat, without that pressure, without that blitz, I do think he should be able to kind of carve this team up if he needs to. If they're winning by a lot, or if this turns into a run-heavy game, then yeah, Patrick Mahomes probably won't have the most ridiculous stat line, but I could easily see another 260 in the air and a 1-touchdown type of performance from him. We do have a player prop prediction for Patrick Mahomes, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But overall, what I want to focus on is that pressure and obviously blitz rate. Now, when we look at the coverage, so forget the pressure of the quarterback, look at the coverage, what the Houston Texans like to run. They run a ton more one high safety looks than two high safety, and they do a fairly good job of splitting man and zone, so, call that even. But that one high and two high is definitely a little bit of a discrepancy. Way more one high safety than two high. Patrick Mahomes has some good metrics against the one high, but also has some bad ones. For example, a bad one, his completion percentage drops nearly 15 points. Against two high, 76% since week 12. Against one high, 61%. His yards per attempt goes up. His EPA goes up, which is expected points added. His DVOA goes up drastically, nearly 25%. But his success rate, accuracy, and turnover-worthy throw percentage all kind of look a little bit worse. So, yeah, I guess the coverage that he should see should give him some pause. But again, back to my point, if he's going to be sitting there in a clean pocket, not getting overly sacked or overly pressured or overly blitzed, I feel like he should be able to manipulate this defense and obviously draw the offense into a good position. So I don't think Patrick Mahomes is in a terrible spot here. I'm not going to sit here and say it's his amazing, prime spot for him, but not all that bad of a spot. Flip it over to CJ Stroud. This could be a different story, okay? So as we know, this Chiefs team, one likes to pressure, likes to blitz, applies pressure. They get to the quarterback. 11th in terms of pressure rate from week 12 on, 7th in blitz rate, and 9th in terms of sack. CJ Stroud versus pressure, not so good. Not so good. No bueno. 70.5% completion percentage against no pressure. That drops to 44.6% with pressure. YPA, yards per attempt, goes from 7 to 6.4. It drops, but not all that crazily. Success rate, from 48% down to 33%. Accuracy, this is a big one. 79% against no pressure, drops to 54% against pressure since week 12. His EPA goes from a positive number, 12.7, down to a negative 37.69. DVOA, a positive percentage, 15.7%, down to a negative 91% DVOA, and his turnover-worthy throw nearly quadruples. So this is not a good spot in terms of the pressure rate from CJ Stroud. And the same thing applies with the blitz. Sometimes those go, in lockstep with one another, right? His completion percentage drops, his YPA drops, his success rate drops, his accuracy drops, EPA drops slightly, DVOA drops, and then his turnover-worthy throw goes up as well. So, yeah, this could be a tough spot for CJ Stroud. And again, we just saw this matchup, 21st of December, and he threw for 2 touchdowns, but he also threw for 2 picks, and he only threw for 244. So, we've already seen that CJ Stroud may have some struggles against this Chiefs defense. Now, if we pivot it to looking at the coverage, right? Well, how's that going to look? We know the Chiefs, or if you don't know, the Chiefs play more man than zone here. CJ Stroud, completion percentage tanks against man, success rate slightly down against man, accuracy drops down 10 percentage points against man, and his turnover-worthy throw also doesn't look all that great. They also run a lot of 2 high safety looks compared to 1 high safety. You guessed it, CJ Stroud, a lot of his key metrics there that at least I like to look at drop. So I do not think CJ Stroud is going to be in the best position here. One thing I will say is that, and though we didn't necessarily see this in that recent matchup of the two, this Chiefs run defense actually in the last few weeks hasn't been all that tremendous. I mean, in terms of what they've allowed here, 7th most yards per carry, 15th in terms of expected points added versus, and just 29th in success rate. So when teams need that conversion or, to punch it 1 yard, like a lot of successful plays on the ground against the Chiefs. So maybe the saving grace could be Joe Mixon out of the backfield for the Texans. To look at the run game of the Chiefs, which isn't exactly their strong suit as of, right now. They've definitely been more of a pass-heavy team. They just threw they ran the ball the 7th fewest amount of times so far this year, closed out the year the 31st team in terms of run rate. But anyways, in terms of what they should see, I don't know if they'll have all that much success. Now, Pacheco is obviously going to be more healthy, right? But still, this is a Houston team that, if we're going to give them credit anywhere, it's going to be on the defensive side of things. They have the 7th fewest yards per carry since week 12, the 4th best EPA verse, and then 18th in success rate. So I guess they're not all that tremendous in, preventing successful plays, but yards per carry, EPA, 2 things I love to look at, they definitely look good. So yeah, maybe that's the saving grace, but all that said, like, think about what we've gone through here. It's not enough to put me on the Texans side of things, and we did just see this matchup, less than a month ago, and the Chiefs won 27-19. Now, that's outside of this 8.5-point number, and by the way, guys, I'll mention this now, probably could have mentioned it earlier, but we're recording this a couple days early, so keep that in mind. Obviously, lines, odds, all subject to change, but I do think this is probably a Chiefs spot. Playoff level, in Arrowhead. By the way, the time this game's going to be played, it could be below 20 degrees. You have a Houston team coming into that temperature. This just screams Chiefs for me. Now, what I will say before we get into the total is where I might take this instead of looking at Chiefs minus 8.5 is a potential spot of Chiefs over 23.5 for their team total. Yes, I mentioned that the Texans defense should be good and whatnot, but even against a good defense, it's not like this Houston team, is guaranteed to shut down Patrick Mahomes and the run game. On the season, they were a good defense, right? They still allowed nearly 22 points per game to their opponent. The last 3 weeks of the year allowed 24 points per game to the opponent, and we saw Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs put up 27 points with Mahomes only throwing for 1 touchdown in that game. So I like the Chiefs team total over. Again, that's 23.5. Get them to that key number of 24, which, would cash 3 touchdowns and a field goal, right? So that might be what I consider a little bit more than potentially looking at, minus 8.5, because even that game in which the Chiefs looked good for the majority of that game in their last matchup in December, technically speaking, the Texans covered this line. They lost by 8. This is now 8.5, right? So a little weary to pull that, but if I had to, I would, you know what I mean? Win by a touchdown and a field goal, and you're good to go. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs win this one by 10. But maybe the Texans, maybe CJ Stroud step it up, and you might be wondering, well, then how did CJ Stroud and the Texans play well against the Chargers? First and foremost, Justin Herbert turned the ball over a million times, right? Secondarily, that's a team that does not pressure all that much, and they don't play as much man, so it's almost a complete inverse matchup here, and it's all the things that Stroud struggles against. So there you go. That's why we probably saw them advance. I don't think they advance here. In terms of what we have from a total, I know I lean towards the Chiefs team total over, and I like that a lot more than what I'm about to say here. I don't know if I mind an under. Based on all of those red numbers from CJ Stroud, I'm having a tough time envisioning how they get to a big number on the scoreboard against this Chiefs defense. And you throw in the fact that I did say Joe Mixon may have a good game, right? Are you really going to score a lot of points running the ball, chewing clock all game long? I'm not quite sure, so I think I do lean full game under, but for me, it's probably Chiefs team total over more so than that, in all honesty. Now let's go ahead and jump into some player props. Before we do, I want to talk to you guys about Underdog. Patrick Mahomes, 0.5 total yards. He can run for it. He can pass for it. You're going to get this square if you sign up today with the link in the description as well as the pinned comment. You're also going to get a deposit bonus up to $1,000, which is mind-blowing. So go check out Underdog, guys. It's really, really fun, really cool. We may post some Underdog slips for this game as well over on my Twitter, which should be popping up here throughout the show. So yeah, go ahead and check out Underdog, guys. Again, get this Patrick Mahomes square. They have a ton of other promos and discounts in the app right now. Check it out. You can use it on your computer or your phone. Underdog, link in the description as well as the pinned comment. All right, let's talk a couple player props. First off, we've already kind of mentioned it. I do think Patrick Mahomes is going to be in a good position here. I don't mind him over 1.5 touchdowns thrown. Now, his passing yards line is at 249. Also, don't mind that. You can see he threw for 260 last time they played. That was on, I believe, 42 pass attempts. His pass attempts line is a little bit lower now, right? Let's see if we can find it. Pass attempts line is at 36. So, yeah, obviously, this is a decent spot, like I've been saying, for Patrick Mahomes. But I kind of like the idea of them going out there and him throwing for 2 touchdowns, which right now, decent odds, right? I mean, you're paying a little bit of juice, but still, for him going up against the team that allows the 3rd most on the season passing touchdowns per game, I do like this. And he also, for what it's worth, hit it in 50% of his games, but look at the last 10, right? Last 10, he hit it in 6 of his 10, averaging 2 touchdowns thrown per game. In the games that they won, I mean, this was an ugly game against Denver, right? They blew out, or this was the day after Thanksgiving, ugly game there. Then they played an ugly game here, and this is one where they didn't necessarily need to throw the ball. So all of these games are kind of explainable, right? Like, they're ugly games. This should be a much sharper Patrick Mahomes and much sharper Chiefs team. It's funny. All of these games were 2-point deciders right here. Look at this. 16-14 final score, 17-19, and then 17-19, interestingly enough. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, over 1.5 touchdowns thrown, first player prop there. I love the matchup against Houston. You look at Houston's red zone defense, 4th or 5th worst this season as well. So I hope that he can kind of play good and really convert down there. And again, when you think about it, it's like their run game has been a little spotty. Pacheco should be a little bit healthier, and they should be healthier as a whole, but their run game hasn't been their forte. Next up, Travis Kelce, over 49.5 receiving yards. Now, this is greatly based on the fact that I think that Mahomes and Kelce are going to take it up a notch. You know what I mean? That could be totally wrong. We don't have numbers or anything to necessarily support that this year. Travis Kelce didn't have the best of seasons, and the Texans are fairly good against this team. Now, last time they played, Travis Kelce, 30 yards, right? He did have 5 receptions, so I considered, over 5.5 receptions, but I do think if he gets 6 receptions, he should be able to sit right there at 49 yards, right? Over on FD or DraftKings or Caesar. So I'm going with the 49 receiving yards, but again, keep an eye on the final plays that's located in the pinned comment to see what we roll with ourselves. I like both of these. If we do flip it over to the Texan side of things, and actually before we do, I should shout out the tool we're using. This is called Outlier. There will be a link down in the description. You get a 7-day free trial of this tool. NFL playoffs, try it out, right? After the trial, it's only $19.99 per month. You hit a couple plays with this, it will pay for itself. What I like about it is they do have this Insights tab, which if you're short on time, you can come in here, set your filters up to whatever you want, and they will show you trending plays with good hit rates in the market. You can also look at it from a game perspective. So say we wanted to dig in and see how the Chiefs have been doing, head to head last season, last 10, last 5. You can put in filters too, especially when you're looking at player props. Say we wanted to look at this Patrick Mahomes only home games. Okay, there we go. You know what I mean? So really cool tool, guys. That link will be down in the description as well as on the final plays. There should be a little box to click through to there. But let's move on. I already mentioned Joe Mixon, and I do think that we could have a decent spot for him. Now, he had 57 yards last time they played, and this is a decent Chiefs defense, right? But again, to close out the year, the run defense in a few advanced metrics hasn't looked all that great, and his line opened at 62.5, moved down to 56, then all the way up to 59, and now we have a 2-yard discount based on what we saw just a little while ago, on January 14th. So I do think 57.5 could be a viable play here. Again, head-to-head, he hit it once, which was last year, and then just came just shy here against Kansas City. But one thing I'll note, only 14 attempts, right? Check this out. If we look at his season, he averaged 18 rushing attempts per game, right? On the road, in terms of rushing attempts, 18.9, and that's including 5 against Tennessee to close out the year. So if he gets his quantity, I don't mind him over 57.5. One spot that I also am considering, and this is a spotty one. I mean, look at the hit rate. Doesn't look all that tremendous, right? But he did cash it in that game against Kansas City recently. I don't mind his over 14.5 first quarter rushing yards. Why first quarter? Because I don't think he's going to get all these late fourth quarter carries or third quarter. If they need to throw the ball, they will put the ball in CJ Stroud's hand and hope to catch up. But first quarter to establish the game and whatnot, I think Joe Mixon could go out there and have 15 yards carried. Again, pretty damn spotty to this line, but he's cashed in 2 straight games against Kansas City, one with the Bengals and one with Houston. So I really don't mind that spot there. But guys, that's what we have for now. Go ahead and comment 19. I'm just about 19 minutes into the video. Comment 19 if you made it this far into the video. Truly, truly do appreciate you stopping by, spending some time with me. Again, let me know what you're rolling with down in the comments, and keep an eye on that pinned comment to take you to the final plays to see what we ultimately roll with ourselves. I'm going to be traveling this weekend, so we're getting these videos out a couple days early, or at least recording them a couple days early, scheduling for a normal release. So we'll be updating our final plays. That's definitely where you'll find what I'm actually rolling with myself, if that does interest you. Absolutely free. So check that out down in the comments. Again, go check out Outlier, check out Underdog, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.